It sounds bad to say it, but being properly positioned going into a bad downturn is a way to make a lot of money. I take no joy in others losing it, obviously. However, it is the way the system works. From a philosophical standpoint, it does make the system stronger. It moves resources from poor allocators of capital to good allocators of capital and is a positive for society. Let me put you in a scenario. I'm going to paint a picture. You just bought a self-storage facility or a multifamily property or a piece of real estate of any kind. You think, based on the last 3 years, that you can raise revenue by 25% at the end of the first year. And that's probably what you're banking on to afford real estate right now. Meaning, you bought the thing at a 5 cap and you're hoping to turn it into a 6.5 cap or 7 cap by raising rents significantly. Well, the crazy thing about real estate is that as a downturn happens, as things get harder out there, operational fundamentals, operations, comes under pressure. We haven't seen that yet in this cycle. All we've seen is debt service jump. All we've seen is interest rates go way up and a lot of risk around that because you only have so much net operating income. The debt market determines the values of your properties. If you have bridge debt, loans maturing, you could be in real trouble, or a construction loan, or what have you. But the other side of the story, the side of the story that we haven't been talking about yet, is what happens if the operations of the business come under pressure? What happens if revenue, God forbid, drops? That's something that we haven't seen yet, and it's something that I hope that we don't have to deal with in the self-storage business, but you have to be prepared for it all the time. And it's why going broke as a real estate investor, going broke, that means getting over-levered, you can't make your debt service payments, and God forbid you lose your property. That act of all this happening happens in what feels like slow motion. At first, it's the interest rates. Then it's the debt service uncertainty. Then, on top of it all, rents drop. Vacancy happens, and you can't bring as much revenue. What happens then? Well, just to break it down with very simple math, if you're operating at a 50% profit margin, meaning 50% of your revenue is spent on expenses, or around 40% in the self-storage business, if you spend 50% of your revenue on expenses, let's say you have $100,000 of revenue and $50,000 of expenses, you have $50,000 of income. Let's say your revenue gets hit by 20%, a 20% hit in what you can bring in. Customers start moving out, you have trouble leasing, you have some vacancy, you have some serious trouble, some operational fundamentals, and they just drop down to maybe what they were 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Not unheard of at all. Your revenue goes to, you guessed it, $80,000. But your expenses are still $50,000. So your profit just went from $50,000 to $30,000. It dropped 40%. So a 20% increase in your, or decrease in your revenue means your profit margin dropped by 40%. You have 40% less net operating income. If you had a 1.4x debt service coverage ratio, meaning you were covering your debt by 1.4 times, and this happens to you, you now can barely make payments, you're breaking even. What if your debt service coverage ratio is only 1.25%? You're in the red. What if your debt is also exploding at the same time? You're in the red. That's why this can be so devastating. It can happen in slow motion over the course of 6 to 12 months. Going broke in business, any business, not just real estate, I've fortunately never had to deal with this, and I hope that I don't have to deal with this. But I've talked to several people over the past 2 years who went broke in 2008 in real estate. They got over-levered, they couldn't pay their debt service, their equity vanished, and they ended up losing the property to foreclosure. It almost always happened as a slow burn. They kind of saw it coming imagine a snowball rolling down a hill in slow motion coming at you that overtakes you over the course of 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months. You have to deal with this. You're doing everything you can. You're trying your best to operate the property. You're trying your best to bring in new revenue, all the while trying to, afford to pay your team because your management fees are probably slashed to nothing. You have almost no profitability across the board, and it starts to slowly suck the cash right out of your business. It's brutal. It's hell. And it's how the operators get flushed out of a market. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a very successful entrepreneur and investor. I'm going to read a direct quote. "It sounds bad to say it, but being properly positioned going into a bad downturn is a way to make a lot of money. I take no joy in others losing it, obviously. However, it is the way the system works. From a philosophical standpoint, it does make the system stronger. It moves resources from poor allocators of capital to good allocators of capital and is a positive for society." There's a lot to unpack here. It's a very gloomy but perfectly logical and true way to look at what we do. As real estate investors, for the past 5, 6, 7 years, everybody has made money. Rates have gone down, so debt service has gotten cheaper, while rents have gone up. Raising rents was not an issue. Boom, boom, 20% rent growth year over year, no problem. In the self-storage business, it's 15, 20% year over year rent growth at a REIT level, which is absolutely insane. We have had no problem in our portfolio raising rents 20, 30, 40% a year, raising revenues that much. It's been great. Everybody wins. Everybody makes money. You can be an idiot and make money in real estate over the past 5 years. So what he's saying is moving resources from poor allocators of capital, meaning they're going to go broke. They're going to experience that slow burn. They're going to lose everything. To good allocators of capital is a net positive for society. That's a very, very unique way of putting this stuff. It's sad. It's going to hurt. I don't know if it's going to happen now. I don't know what's going to happen. But if we see operational fundamentals, meaning revenue, rentals, if we see that stuff start to slow down and rents drop, which they almost always do during a recession, it's going to put added pressure from both sides of the balance sheet. Your revenue is going to drop and your expenses, your debt service is going to go up. And that's going to make it very, very hard to thrive, very, very hard to survive. Juniper Square, the sponsor of this show, recently conducted some research to help you understand what real estate investment managers are doing to build stronger relationships with their investors and earn more referrals to new investors. Their new special report includes data on topics such as what factors are the most important for building investment relationships today, how technology is being used to provide a competitive edge, and the one technology integration that is driving more repeat investors and more referrals. To download this for free, visit junipersquareresearch.com. Again, to get this report for free, visit junipersquareresearch.com. I just wanted to let you know that we have a paid real estate community with over 500 members. Not many people know about this. It's on Facebook. It's an inside look into my business and many other business. It's skewed towards self-storage, but there's also a lot of other commercial real estate investors in the group. We're pinging ideas off of each other. It's just where I share a lot more intimate details about my business than what I share on Twitter or on this podcast. So if you're interested in this and you want to meet other people, there's been people investing in each other's deals on there. There's been people share deals that other people bought. It's a place where a lot of cool stuff is happening. If you're interested in this, visit sweatystartup.com/REC, as in real estate community. sweatystartup.com/REC. There's a free trial as well. You can check it out for a week for $1.